Inversions can be a great position and tool for various things in our body. One, it can help us with finding our lower abs and lifting our pelvic floor without having to over-recruit that can lead to pelvic floor tightness. We can use gravity in our favor where we're not working against gravity like I would be upright here, but instead being kind of tipped upside down a little bit. Now the load is less for us to be able to lift our pelvic floor and lift our lower abs and get our organs unloaded from those areas. You can also use inversions to help with getting more expansion in your upper rib cage. So yes, when we go to inhale, we want our diaphragm and our lower ribs to be the first to expand. Our diaphragm will then push down into our organs that then descends into our pelvic floor and helps length happen there. But we can't forget what's happening up at top. As we continue to inhale, we need our lungs to fill with air. If the lungs don't fill with air, that chest wall isn't expanding and we're not getting this equal kind of growing orb of light and distribution of pressure. That means the pressure has to go somewhere. That often means that our pressure will then go too much out into our abs, contributing to putting constant stress and strain on diastasis, or going too much down into a pelvic floor that might already be lengthened for someone that has prolapse. We might also then have the tendency to just inhale up into our neck and shoulders, contributing to neck tension instead of breathing and expanding out. This can be particularly the case for someone that has a little bit more of a narrow ISA, where their rib cage is a little bit more closed and has a harder time opening. I like thinking as if someone kind of has plastic wrap around our upper body, and so it can't expand as well and the pressure will go somewhere else. So if you think about using a water bottle as an example, you can think about water in the water bottle representing air. So if I'm upright, that can contribute to more air and expansion kind of coming down. Whereas if I use an inversion and tip myself, now we can see how more air goes towards the upper half, okay? So we're gonna start off with just a little bit of an elevation. If this feels like it's too much of a challenge for your upper body, for that serratus, and you're feeling tension in your neck and your shoulders, even just starting off with knees on the ground and on your forearms is still an example of an inversion. Even doing a foot elevated bridge can still have that same tipping effect. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna come onto our knees and we're gonna be on the yoga blocks with hips right over knees. And then we're gonna go down into this forearm position. Forearms are parallel to each other. I prefer starting off with the pinky side of your forearms on the ground versus palms up or palm down with it. And then we gotta kind of customize it to you. So if you're someone who already has the tendency to be rounded forward, upper abdominant, glute tucked, then you might actually have to think about kind of lengthening a little bit more and opening up the front side of your chest, lifting your sit bones and kind of widening them to help you not be in this clenched position, okay? We can also think about, for those people, to maybe push your forearms apart from each other to give a little bit more support to your scapula from your middle and lower traps instead of just pushing more there through your serratus. If we're already kind of rounded forward in our shoulders, that serratus has nowhere else to go. So positioning it a little bit more mid-range and relaxing down into it and doing the press out can help it not be in that rounded position. We're thinking as if there was a laser pointer in the center of our chest that is pointed straight down. Now my shoulders are right over my elbows and my hips are right over my knees, so you might need a mirror to help make sure that that alignment is there. And so with this positioning, if you then on the flip side have the tendency to kind of sag down, you then maybe want to press through those armpits and kind of fill in between your shoulder blades without dropping your chest down. And then we might also think about kind of lifting those ribs up towards the spine. So in the end, my back is nice and flat and my rib cage is stacked to my pelvis to help with a good line of energy and flow for when I go to inhale. Now the last setup component is with your feet. If it doesn't feel like too much, you can have your feet on a wall and kind of drag your feet up the wall without them moving. Now, as we do this, you're gonna feel hamstring engagement. If you're someone that already tends to be tucked, you're going to make sure when you engage those hamstrings that your pelvis just stays set, that it doesn't go to tuck more. If you're someone that tends to be more in a tip forward posture of your pelvis and an anterior pelvic tilt, then you can use those hamstrings to help tuck your hips under with it, okay? So finding what you need is important for the setup. Now, as I'm here, I'm long through the back of my head and neck. I'm going to inhale, thinking about breathing into my armpits, into my back, into my hips, feeling my chest wall expand. And then now I'm going to exhale, thinking of the bottom up and kind of scooping and hollowing those lower abs, thinking about unloading my organs from my pelvic floor and my lower abs. I'm making sure I don't tuck more either in my pelvis or in my upper body, but just kind of think about keeping that neutral posture as I'm here. Then you're going to inhale again, maybe keeping a little tension in those lower abs so that more breath goes everywhere else. And then exhale. Feel everything collect and gather and lift without having to overwork. The other important thing to pay attention to here is that as you go to exhale, that you keep space between your sit bones. If you go to exhale and your sit bones kind of come together or you clench and tuck under more, then you're overusing your deep hip rotators with that pelvic floor lift, and that can contribute to backside pelvic floor tightness, which can then affect how our prolapse feels. So making sure that you're keeping that space in your sit bones. You can even squeeze a block between your knees instead, because using those adductors can help pull our pelvis in from the front and keep the backside open up, can really help with that. You might also be someone that have to think of more breath going to the backside of your body and the backside of your pelvis instead of just straight down through the front and through your lower abs to help balance out the system. But hopefully after taking a few breaths here, you then go to stand up, can feel easier expansion with your inhales, feel less heavy in your pelvic floor and in your lower abs, and everything just feels a little bit more lifted.